Howdy, folks. Thank God it's Friday. Friday means snow in Buffalo, and other days mean snow in Buffalo. How well did you? How hard did you get hit, Russ? Because I heard
we got about 3-4 inches, but it's gone. Today was 50 degrees and sunny, so it all got washed away by this morning.
I saw Michael K at ESPN. He was like stuck on, I think it was the West Side Highway in New York, and But the thing is, people don't realize in most places that are not prepared for heavy snow, 3 or 4 inches is like 3 or 4 feet in other places.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, when I lived in Virginia, that's how it was. Anytime there was even a dusting of snow, and I'm from Michigan, so we had snow yesterday, and it came down, and there's still some of it on the ground, but it was hardly even talked about. It was not the news it is in other municipalities.
Well, we got the worst kind of snow. The worst kind of snow is that heavy, wet snow it's just around freezing, and then you get the rain. And this morning it was basically massive puddles of slush, and it's the absolute worst because you're prepared for snow, and then you get rained on and you get soaked. And
the thing is, though, and I learned this a couple of years ago. There was a freak snowstorm around late October. And then it was one of those years where we maybe got 3 snowstorms and that's it. And so I'm hoping that that's the kind of year it is this year, because you got that freak storm, and then it's showing it's even going to be in the 50s next week. But what happens is the budget doesn't seem to kick in for snow removal until after Thanksgiving. So with freezing rain like there was yesterday in the New York metro area, people really did get screwed, because it's there was nothing to save them on the road other than their driving skills and their car. And you're depending on other people's driving skills these days to save them in bad weather, you're done.
I'll tell you, though, I admire and marvel at the good people of Buffalo. There's no hardier people.
No, that's true.
They snow is nothing to them.
No.
They spit on snow. I mean, they just march through it. It's just, they get so much snow all the time, and it just never stops. If there's a lot of snow and you're going to a game in Buffalo, every seat still is filled. They know what they're doing, and they know how to deal with snow in Buffalo. So,
well, Kevin, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was just talking to a friend a few minutes ago who was from the area, and we were talking about, because the city of Buffalo gets hit with snow, but it's not the city. It's just south of the city, which is exactly where Orchard Park is. So Orchard Park and all these suburbs south of the city of Buffalo get tons and tons of snow.
Right.
And in the suburb that I live in right now, or the city, very rarely do we get heavy snow, and when we do, we're basically paralyzed like places that don't get snow. It's those particular areas south of the city of Buffalo that just get absolutely destroyed, and that's the folly of the fact that they built the stadium in the worst possible place.
All right, so I've got something for me that broke yesterday that is from CBC, so I'm assuming the source is good. CBC.ca.
Okay.
Gunni Johansson, who is the president of Iceland, once said that
I know where you're going here.
once said that basically pineapple pizza stinks, right? He made a disparaging remark about it. But yesterday he came back and he walked that back. And my thing is, don't walk that back. You're right.
Yes.
Pineapple should never be on pizza. Why would a president walk this back? Is he worried about Canada? Seriously?
He's worried about the pineapple faction in the vote.
I will say, Russ, that, and you and I are in agreement on that there is something worse than pineapple on a pizza. And it is pineapple on a leftover pizza, a 2-year-old pizza. I like leftover pizza.
Yes.
Yeah, I really do. But pineapple pizza it's even worse than when it's fresh on a pizza. It's soggy, and it just sort of infringes upon the entire pizza, and it's just awful.
And it's not just it's because around here the Hawaiian pizza is pineapple, it's ham, and and some places put cherries on it. It's absolutely disgusting. I mean, I like pineapple. I just cannot fathom pineapple on a pizza, and I don't know who would want to admit that you invented pineapple on pizza because you should have been taken out and shot.
Well, that's the thing. I know it was invented in Canada, right? But they act like it is a crime if you say something about pineapple pizza. Even on Facebook, if you say it, I have Canadian friends that say, "Oh, it's great" or whatever. I guarantee you they're not ordering that at home. I guarantee it.
Nope.
Well, it makes sense that it came from Canada because it's really not American. I really don't know any other way to put it. Like, I would say oddly, as I've gotten older, my favorite pizza has now includes bacon. Like, I love bacon on a pizza now. Like
the meat lovers pizza with bacon.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be meat lovers, but I like woke up one day. I believe it was a Tuesday, and I thought I think I would like bacon on my pizza.
You know,
And I started ordering it now. If I'm having pizza, and to be brutally honest, I really don't get pizza that often, but when I do, I like bacon on my pizza.
Yeah.
So
I get pizza a lot here, but I will say this: in my bacon eating days, because I don't eat pork bacon anymore, but when I did, it was good on a pizza as long as there's not too much. Because if there's too much grease from the bacon, then with the grease from the cheese, it could be too much.
Yeah.
Well, on pizza, I will say this too, and this is being an old timer, but back when you used to get a pizza when I was a kid, like it was burned a little bit, like the cheese, it would be a little bit darker, and you could actually tilt the pizza and it would not slide off. Today they essentially just run it through the oven at a high velocity speed, like it just zips through the oven so that it barely has cooked. And then if you just tilt the pizza, everything just kind of slides off. I like my pizza cooked.
How do you know that a pizza has been cooked the right way when you have the pepperoni that's burned on the edges with the pools of fat in the middle of it?
Here's the
That's
thing.
exactly right. That's exactly.
I will do this with the pizza and get some of the excess oil off. I will.
Yes. And
I will hold it horizontal and do that.
And to me, the only thing that's more anathema than pineapple is anchovies. They're disgusting.
Yeah, I mean anchovies on a pizza.
Well, I would never order anchovies on a pizza, but I don't. I've had them on Caesar salads. They're okay.
Sure.
I'm not an anchovy person.
But I don't.
Especially if they look like fish, I'm not into that.
They're staring up at you.
Yeah. No, but so the best pizza though of all right now for me is this. I'm going to show you guys a link because now I'm not usually, you guys know, and Kevin, you've eaten plenty of times to know that I'm not a really big health food person. Like I don't care if something's super healthy. Like I'll eat anything. I'm not usually. I mean, I like to try to lose weight and not eat as many carbs. But so I found this pizza at Costco. Okay, so.
Nothing says quality pizza like Costco.
Costco has really quality stuff, by the way. Costco.
Yeah, they have quality stuff, but we're talking pizza.
No, this is frozen. No, I'm going to say that this is obviously frozen pizza.
No, look, I eat frozen pizza too, but it's got to be like a wood fired. It's got to be something.
This is good frozen pizza. Ready?
Let me tell you about some Domino's.
This is the stuff. Okay, right here it is. Let me get it out of here. So, hold on, here it comes. So, this is what you want to try. This stuff. Okay, this is. All right, this is cauliflower crust margarita.
Yeah. My wife makes that from scratch. She makes cauliflower.
Okay.
It's actually not bad, to be honest.
This is amazing.
Oh, I can see that being good if you do it on. Do you do it on a pizza stone?
Yeah. My wife makes, and you can do it with. We haven't had it, but there's another vegetable. I wish she was here and I'd ask her, but we have cauliflower pizza, and you can whatever you put on a regular pizza, you can.
Yeah. Right. And cauliflower crust is difficult to make, but if you do it right, it's
My wife and two of my daughters are vegetarian, so I know kind of all about vegetarianism. I do not embrace the lifestyle, but
I don't at all. I mean, in fact, my wife's a vegetarian. I try to, whenever she doesn't have meat, I try to have extra meat. But
yeah.
So my kids don't eat meat either. But I'm telling you, this stuff it like.
Oh, it looks good. And it's non-GM. I like everything that it's got on it. My grandfather's
article I found, it says people are obsessed with these cauliflower pizzas at Costco, and I'm telling you, that came out in May, and I am one of those people that's obsessed with it.
Go ahead.
It takes as you mentioned, a long time to make that pizza. But if you go through it, like you really do forget that you're eating cauliflower. It really has a crust like.
It does.
Because cauliflower doesn't have a lot of taste. I mean, it's
yeah.
And I actually like it. It's it's.
I mean, you can
Italians eat
cauliflower mashed potatoes, cauliflower spaghetti. Cauliflower is like the
cauliflower rice.
Carb alternative.
Cauliflower rice is unbelievable. Like
I've got a batch of that now. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's my suggestion. Go to Costco, get yourself cauliflower pizza, try it. You'll be blown away. Like I'll go there and I'll buy 5 boxes of it, and it's just like it's my go-to snack.
Heck, we should sell this show to the Food Network. Let's go.
I wish we should. Maybe they would take it over for us. That would be nice. All right.
Let's talk about hockey.
I'm
reasonably sure that no hockey player eats cauliflower pizza. So.
Yeah, you used to, but it wasn't you I was talking to that said like some of the players now are upset when they take out a young kid and they want to take him out for a big steak dinner and he's like eating a salad and.
What I was told is a player told me, a veteran player said, if you want to eat a hamburger, you got to do it by yourself.
Yeah, like you can't. They
if you go out with a teammate, he'll give you grief for eating a burger.
Yeah, they're all into this. I mean, they are very actually health conscious. A lot of them are because they're working out so much and they're getting they have personal trainers and they're all like trying their best to.
Perfect timing, Peter. You just missed the pre-show. It was a heavy food pre-show, so now we can.
I just had to take my kid to Popeyes for his first time ever. My goodness.
We just besmirched Canada for eating too many Hawaiian pizzas. I call them un-American.
Look,
very
I will say this: I won't talk about pizza around Russ and Mike because it's just there's no winning in this game. There's just none.
So we're talking. There was the president of Iceland who killed the pineapple pizza, and then he just walked back the comments like yesterday, and it's just like he should never have done that. He made a good stance. He should have stuck with it.
Yeah. He was getting sued by Dole. That's what happened.
Yeah, whatever.
Right. As a teaser, guys, I'm going to give you a statistic in the beginning of the show that's going to blow everyone's mind. Okay,
all right.
Like one of the best statistics I've come up with all year. I like to try to come up with mind-blowing statistics. This one is absolutely insane. All right, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday. Thank God, it's Friday, November 16th, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Peter Tessier.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen from USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund. And you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. In case you didn't know and you just happen to be watching a podcast, you're like, what the heck podcast am I watching? I don't know why I even say that.
The Hawaiian Pizza Podcast.
Yes. You're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world, if at all possible. And this first statistic today for everybody out there is it has to do with those crazy Arizona Coyotes, okay?
Okay.
All right. The Arizona Coyotes have been shorthanded 58 times this year. Okay.
Yes.
They have scored 10 shorthanded goals.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, it is crazy. They
give them the league's 22nd best power play percentage as a shorthanded team.
Yeah. They have more shorthanded goals than
they have power play goals. Yeah, if you watch the Coyotes now, they mention that every game. I'm a big Coyote watcher, so.
But just the fact that they're 17.24% scoring while shorthanded,
right,
is that puts them ahead of 9 other NHL teams while they're on the power play.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is an amazing stat.
Yeah, I mean it's really just goofy. There's no other explanation for it.
I mean, how is it? We have seen a lot of shorthanded goals this year, though, in general, and I'm wondering.
We've seen more scoring.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll give a reason why, because Toronto scored a shorthanded goal in the game against San Jose last night. It's because more teams are using their offensive players in penalty killing situations. They're not using specialists. I know that Toronto has been using Tavares and Marner and Kasperi Kapanen, and other teams are using the guys. They're maximizing the impact of their top 6 forwards on the power play. If they're quick and if they get on the other team's point men, they create situations where turnovers happen, and these guys can take advantage of those turnovers. Unlike a Michael Grabner, who, and I don't know how many goals he has for Arizona, but Michael Grabner, the one year with the Leafs, I think he had 10 breakaways shorthanded and scored on none of them.
I remember that one year, but then there are other years where he's had a lot.
Yeah, Grabner
the
is
penalty kill
breakaway artist. So
the penalty kill is a skill position now. Before, you just wanted guys who could get big Craig Ludwigs, right? Who had shin pads the size of tree trunks and could just block the puck. But the point is what I think coaches have realized is that you block a shot, and particularly from the point, that puck's an available option to go do something. So why put just a slug out there?
Right.
There's a skilled option here to take advantage of it. And it's the evolving change of coaching tactics in the NHL. I know Wheeler and Scheifele are one of the top, they're the second pair forwards on the Jets penalty kill after Lowry and Tanev.
Yeah, the Flyers don't have one regular season. They got like one or two in the preseason, but they don't even have one in the regular season yet.
Well, let me bring this up because we were talking about it yesterday during the show, and then the penalty came down, Peter. Josh Morrissey, I think it was like an $8,500 fine for the check and slam of TJ Oshie in the game on Wednesday. And Kevin, this was almost exact in terms of the play that Mike Matheson of Florida got suspended 2 games for Elias Pettersson. And the only thing I can see between the two that was different was that Pettersson got hurt and was concussed and was out for a week or two. And Oshie got up and was still staggered, but went to the front of the net. And I haven't heard anything about any kind of adverse effect. To me, it's symbolic of it's the end result and not the actual infraction. And I have a problem with that.
Well, I don't, because that's the way the law works. You know, if you come up and try to kill me, your penalty is a lot different than if you actually kill me. Right. And if you cause me great bodily harm in your attempt to kill me, you're going to be penalized more. That's the way the law works. Why wouldn't it work in terms of the supplemental discipline? And, you know, they don't, you know, they always say right up front that, they take into account the injury that suffered. And that's just the way the law works. It makes a lot of sense to me. In fact, I think to do it any way but that would be illogical in my opinion.
Now, what did you think of the Tom Wilson situation with the suspension being taken down?
I just think that the PA is doing an incredible job with the arbitrators, or the arbiters have just decided that they want to kind of prove that they have some value. I mean, I thought, with the sake, let's just go back to the Watson one. Like, why did that arbiter think that his opinion was better than Gary Bettman's opinion? It's just, to me, it was just, you're like throwing darts. I mean, like that's just very subjective there. So I don't know. I mean, I regardless of what he ended up getting, I think Wilson, the NHL did its part. It was their job to tell Wilson, we're not tolerating this anymore. And that was a heavy suspension. Like a quarter of the season is a heavy suspension. So,
it is.
But I'm not going to say the arbiter was wrong. I'm not going to say he was right. He just needed to make a call, and he did. But I was actually surprised. I thought that was, quite a reasonable penalty for a guy who is a repeat offender by anyone's definition.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I don't know. I really think that the fact there was an arbitrator at all in this situation was bizarre. Totally bizarre to me.
Well, I mean, it's within their rights. Like, I get that. I mean, you want some sort of, like, it does seem wrong or unfair that Gary Bettman would have the final say on everything affecting a player. There needs to be some means of some independence. Having an outside. So, it makes sense they go to the outside arbiter, but, it's every ruling has gone for the PA in these cases. So,
it seems like it's not going to go suddenly the other way, right? Because the PA is bringing up the argument. So
I tell you though, if you're Sundqvist, like, aren't you ticked by this? Doesn't the PA represent you too?
That's a great thing. I agree with you.
They represent both the victim and the assailant in this case.
And shouldn't the actual victim be, have a little bit more?
There should be a victim statement. He should be able to come forward and say how his life has been altered.
Well, we were talking about this, Kev.
You laugh, but I think that's true. I mean, why wouldn't there be?
Well, the arbitrator. But here's the problem, Kev. The arbitrators know nothing about hockey. They only know what the rules are and what's brought forth in front of them. And I do think instead of just having a cold, hard arbitrator, that you should have hockey people making this decision with an arbitrator.
It's a great suggestion, Russ. I'm with you on that. I mean,
I think
so.
an even better suggestion, which I thought was absolutely hilarious and not cool, of course, but that the arbitration group should be made up of a group of players' wives. And to see exactly how they would respond to this, because I mean, these are the guys who have to deal with the guys with concussions that are hurt for a while, and it's partially joking, but partially like kind of what you're saying, Kevin. It does affect people. I mean, this is actually to bring a person back like that.
As long as you had Hoffman and Carlson on that panel, it's going to be awesome.
Let me bring up this story just because it sort of explains. Like I really shouldn't demean like an arbitrator's rulings, because I do know that they put a lot of thought in this. Like they're not throwing darts, even though it seems to us like they are. I mean, they do. I remember years ago, I mean in the 1970s, talking to Theodore St. Antoine, who was a former University of Michigan dean of their law school, but he was known as he did a lot of independent arbitrator work, and he did it for Major League Baseball. And he made some rulings that really sort of changed baseball. And one of them was on a pitcher named Ed Farmer.
Oh, I remember Ed Farmer, yeah.
Yeah, and that ruling, I can't remember the numbers, but it was the White Sox were offering him, let's just say, then these are not the right numbers, but let's say they were offering him at the time $400,000 or $200,000, and he thought that he should get $650,000, and then you had to take one or the other. You couldn't split the difference, and so St. Antoine heard both the arguments, and I talked about him later, and he said he was so bothered because he loved the game of baseball, but he thought that to pay Farmer that amount of money was not that he wasn't worth that amount of money, but it was more fair than the White Sox giving him $200,000 because Farmer was very popular in the city, and he brought in people who liked to be there when he was going to pitch and all that kind of stuff. And he just thought it was the fair thing to do, gave a lot of thought. And he was really bothered because after that, of course, everybody said, well, if Ed Farmer's worth $650, then I'm worth blah.
Yeah, so basically Ed Farmer got $500 and the White Sox were offering $350.
Is that what it was? But anyway, it did alter the game.
Yeah.
Because people used Ed Farmer as a yardstick. And I remember him specifically. The reason I knew him, one of my colleagues was his nephew. And I remember him, really being bothered by the fact. He said it was the ruling I had to make because that was the more fair decision. So, I'm not suggesting these guys don't, try to put their heart and soul in it, but from the outside looking in, I don't know what we accomplished by reducing.
Well, like I would say in the act, they look at previous situations, and with the Wilson case, there was no previous situation. So then if you look at something close, well, then you're definitely we're going to cut a lot of games from it. So that's the other thing is like now we're seeing situations, the same thing with Morrissey, where those things didn't happen before, but now that body slamming thing has happened just about twice now. It's pretty close.
We have breaking news here, guys. Per Elliot Friedman, the Rangers and Edmonton have made a 1-for-1 trade. Going to the Oilers, Ryan Spooner. Going to the Rangers, Ryan Strome.
Oh boy!
Wow.
I got to tell you, I think the Oilers got a good deal here.
Now, Russ, the only thing I can think of is Strome. I think he has 1 year left in his contract, and he's he's less expensive. I'm checking the. I think he's
don't need to worry about it. They just signed Spooner to a reasonable deal.
Well, maybe that's. I mean, maybe they're. Ryan Spooner had another year at $4 million, so he was $4 million this year, $4 million next year. Strome is $3.1 million for this year and next year.
Yeah.
So it's a saving of $900,000.
I don't think they did it to save the money. I think they did it because they weren't utilizing Ryan Spooner, so they traded him. And I'm telling you, they got a lesser player in return. Like this is a good.
Well, I mean, basically you traded an imperfect player for an imperfect player. Like neither one of these guys. are considered must-have players. I mean, they're NHL talents. Obviously, they're offensively skilled, but Strom has been never lived up to expectation, and Spooner has had spurts when he's looked really, really good, but hasn't had the level of consistency.
Oh, that's fair.
As a two-way player that coaches like to see. So I think in each case, you're getting a player with warts, and you hope that he'll perform better for you than the other guy did.
I'll tell you what I
don't overlook though that Spooner's a left wing and Strome is a center right wing, and there could be some issues, could be some tactical things there balancing out your lines given the sides that they play.
Well, they had too many centers, the Rangers. Like, we all knew that, but Spooner can play wing too. When they brought him in last year, he played wing and he scored a lot. My issue is we already know what Ryan Strome's ceiling is. We're not sure what Spooner's is yet because he's really never had regular playing time with, any team, really.
Right. This is the third team in a year that he's played on. So it's
right. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, this brings Strome back to the Strome was originally an Islander, right? Who went in the
fifth overall.
This is a great kid. Great guy.
This is trading dollars hoping to shake something up for two teams because they both have a goal and assist. They both have reasonably comparable numbers, although Strome seems to be a little bit better production on the goal front than Spooner over time.
Right.
But it's more probably to adjust your own roster and trading a few dollars than it is to do anything else. Like, I mean, it's not earth shattering by any stretch, but it's curious. That's for sure.
No, it's no different than the Pearson for Hagelin trade in terms of trading two guys who have underachieved for each other.
But Kev, go ahead, Kev. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, I was going to say the only difference with this is David Quinn's a new coach, and I think he just looked at it and said, I'm not going to have any use for Ryan Spooner, so Jeff Gorton went and traded him. I think that's really what the bottom line is here.
Kevin, don't you think that, I mean, we know that Hagelin is a speedster and Pearson is not, but I can't get by the factor that Pearson's got another 2 years at $3.75 million and Hagelin's a UFA at the end of the year. And there are some people who think this is a signal that Rob Blake is going to try at, where he can to sort of shed some salary and try to reset because I
don't even think that's that we're guessing on that. I think that's definitely what they're going to do. I've sort of heard in the trade market that everybody said that one of the reasons no one's making any dramatic moves is that basically every team in the league, with the exception of the LA Kings, doesn't seem to know exactly where they're at. Like, there are teams that were supposed to be near the bottom, like, for example, the Vancouver Canucks. I think the Buffalo Sabres have been a little better than we thought they were going to be. I think a lot of us were bullish on Buffalo, but we didn't think they'd be off to this kind of start. There are a lot of teams like that. So it's difficult to know, where they are. But I think the Kings, as from talking to GMs, and I have not talked to Rob Blake about this, but that seem to think that the Kings have decided, boy, we're just not as good as we thought we were. And I think they realize now that, their team is not designed for the speed game of the modern NHL.
This is a good excuse to start transition to one. Kevin wrote a piece in USA Today regarding some of the trades that have been made. And it was mostly during the off season, right, Kevin?
Right. Yeah.
And some of the rumors that are, because this is, you're getting to the time now, the American Thanksgiving, which is next Thursday, where, this is sort of the line of demarcation where teams say they evaluate what's going on and maybe they'll make a change and maybe they won't. And obviously the Nylander thing in Toronto is contributing to that because there's a December 1st deadline. I mean, first, Kev, what in terms of just talk, what do you hear?
Well, I've did some discussions with GMs this morning about it just in general terms. And the feeling that people have is that if Nylander's to be traded, it'll probably happen to the West. Like, Don Waddell is interested, but I don't think he's willing to pay what Nylander is asking for. I mean, they were really bargaining and shopping, this summer. I don't think suddenly are going to, make Nylander an $8 million player, and they wouldn't make that move. But there's no question that they will give up a defenseman. And if they don't make the Nylander trade, and the chances are they won't, but if they don't do that, I think there's still a decent chance that they'll move, one of those defensemen. And it won't be Slavin, and I can't imagine it'll be Hamilton. So, it'll be Falk or
Pesci or
Pesci. Yeah, exactly. And I think the cost certainty of those two players is what's attractive to people who are interested in them. I mean, obviously their ability as well, but like for example, and I know Mike's written about this. If you're Toronto, and not only do you want a defenseman, but you like the idea of having one locked up that you don't have to fool around with. And that's why to them, Pesci is probably a better deal than Falk. I think Falk has just 2 years left.
he's got one more year after this year.
Yeah, this year and the next year. I'm sorry. Yeah. So that's why I think Toronto probably would prefer to have Falk in terms of his ability.
If he was locked up, sure.
Yeah,
but I think the fact that Pesci's under contract for 5 more years at 4.025 or something like that.
Well, but the big fit that everyone seemed to hone in on when I was talking about it with people is that that perhaps the deal could be made with Dumba in Minnesota and Nylander. Now the question is whether or not Paul Fenton would be willing to do that. I mean, his team's played very well.
Yeah,
they've started to turn the corner here a bit too, Kevin. Like,
and
coming on.
And it was Rusted in our group who thought so highly of them, as I recall, at the start of the season. But they've played well. So that's why I'm a little skeptical that they would make such a bold move like that when they're playing so well.
Kevin, I think, and this is just me, putting pieces together. I think if it was a deal between Toronto and Minnesota, it would be multiplayer, and it might include Dumba. But I would not be surprised if it included Gardner, because Gardner is from Minnesota. He's probably looking for around what Dumba would get, what Dumba got on a contract. It would give Minnesota a defenseman back, and Minnesota is loaded with, young forwards like, Jordan Greenway or Luke Cunnin or Charlie Coyle. A 2-for-2, that type of deal probably makes more sense than a 1-for-1, because they're taking away from their defense and they're adding a forward. It might balance out the money too.
See, but I don't think that it makes sense from the idea that they're going to make a run at the Cup.
Sure.
Like, you need both of those players. I mean, you're looking to improve your defense, certainly, but your offense is good enough as is. But you take Gardner out of that, if you're adding one, offensive-minded player and then losing another, I don't know. If I'm running making a run for the Cup, I don't know that I'd make that trade. I would say more likely. For example, let's just say that they make that trade and they get Nylander back, so they improve. Well, then do they turn to Don Waddell, who has 2 right shot defensemen that he's willing to move? And would they, there be some sort of deal between Minnesota and Carolina? I think that's a possibility.
Well, the ironic thing is, and we thought, we've always said when Eck would write about a 3-way deal, everybody would say, Looney Tunes. Well, last year he was proved right because of.
That's right, Mike. Don't forget that.
But it wasn't proven that he wasn't Looney Tunes.
That's true. But
I like that, by the way. I love the Looney Tunes, by the way. So.
3-way deals did happen, and that deal, Colorado, Nashville, and Ottawa, it came off. And I know Pierre LeBrun said yesterday, he says, I wouldn't doubt that there's a possibility of a team like Detroit would be interested in Nylander, but they don't have the pieces to give back to Toronto in terms of the defenseman that they're looking for. And if a third team got involved, that you could have a 3-way deal. And it's not out of the realm of possibility now.
Happened, by the way. It's not like, I remember people forget that Yari Curry was a flyer for like a few seconds. Remember, there were certain on the way to LA, and they don't have a lot.
Bob McKenzie, this was several years ago, wrote the thing about it where he talked about how often they happen. I mean, they happen, they just don't happen very often. It's just once in a blue moon is my brother.
And trades and neither do. For what I do, trades don't happen as much as the rumors that you write out. But I do agree. I think that what's coming down now, at least my blog today and what I've heard, is that Winnipeg might be the key player in a 3-way deal that would involve Nylander. Now, and that would, I do think that Jacob Trouba is definitely a target for the Leafs. And that's the kind of player that they would like.
Yes.
Jacob Trouba is not going anywhere.
You don't think he's going anywhere?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
I would bow to Peter, but not from what I've, been told. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get anything out of that city's GM, but just from I mean, I do believe, and again, Peter, Peter would know better than anybody, but I'm not convinced that Trouba's that great,
Well, let me just say this, because I think Toronto would love Trouba, and Trouba would answer a lot of questions, and he would be, him paired with Morgan Riley would be a pairing that would play 25 plus minutes a night, and it would definitely improve them in terms of moving other guys down.
This would be Trouba wouldn't be if they know that Trouba doesn't want to play there, right? That comes down to, right, and he actually does want to play there, but do they know that?
That being said, I find it hard to believe that Trouba will get dealt during the year, because I think Winnipeg is just like Toronto in terms of cup aspirations. But in the summer, all bets are off.
This would depend, Mike. That's why I say I don't think it would be. I think Nylander would pass through Winnipeg for another defenseman somewhere else. Like, so that they would be getting rid of Trouba, but they would be replacing it with a different defenseman.
That I'm in complete agreement with Mike. That's my point. They're not trading him now. They still think they got a shot to win the cup. And they might trade him this summer, but they're not trading him now. Like I just can't think of a trade that would make sense for them.
I think the trade that makes sense for them, Kevin, is if there's a way to take someone like Nylander and pass him through to get something that's and I'll just use a name as just to throw it out. Not that there's any direct correlation, but if you could get someone like Pesce to come back, who's got cap stability for 4 more years after this season, and you don't have to deal with Trouba's going to be $6+ million contract when you've got Byfuglien, you've got Myers coming up, and they love Myers, and Myers hasn't given them any headaches. You've got Morrissey coming up for a new deal soon too, and you're going to have to deal with Niku too if he comes in. And they've got to pay Line and Connor. It's just that they can't afford it all. So I think they're open. They have a headache with Trouba, and it hasn't been resolved. It's only been resolved through arbitration. And we know that's never a lasting cure for anything. And given that, they worked so hard to try and find a deal with him, and they basically said no, I think if they can head off a problem with Trouba coming now, they would do it. But it doesn't involve just going Nylander for Trouba. If that was even the case, it would have to be a flow through to recoup what they lose in Trouba, because, and to your point, they can't afford to lose him without replacing something like him.
Well,
they can't.
But I don't know why you do that if you're trying, because he's a good fit for a run at the playoffs, and you can trade him this summer. Like, but like
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I think if the right deal came through, I think Kevin Cheveldayoff would have to listen to it, or at least explore it, because you might not get an essence where you can do this later. That's the bigger problem.
I mean, Trouba's an UFA coming up, right? I mean,
no, he's RFA for 1 more year.
Yeah,
so RFA coming up. So that's I meant that. I'm sorry, I meant that.
Salary arbitration eligible RFA for 1 more year.
Right, they can hold on to another year.
Yeah,
still, and not have.
Well, they got this summer to to hold a sweepstakes. Right. They want to do that, and they may probably they will end up doing that. But I don't know. Most of the GMs I've talked to thought he wasn't going to be traded during the season. We're talking about now. So
yeah, I mean, that makes some sense. I mean, I do know that. I mean, I want to bring Philadelphia into the Nylander discussion a little bit. I was working on the rumor chart, which is supposed to launch today at some point, and hopefully will. We've got about 25 players on it right now, and obviously, Nylander's on the chart. But after last night's game in Philadelphia, I think things may be changing a little bit because, Russ, of the injury now to Brian Elliott, and the fact that the Flyers, and it wasn't Elliott's fault. The Flyers,
that was
a rough night. They hit 6 posts and all that stuff, but it doesn't matter. I mean, they lost 3-0 to New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible effort in the sense that the power play still stinks. when they tried to change up the power play, it didn't work. They posts aside, they again couldn't get the job done. But you know what? I'm hearing the opposite. Act like Nylander to Philly wasn't looking good a couple days ago. Now, if something changed, we'll see. But Hextall doesn't do anything fast.
I don't think Nylander to Philly. Again, I'm thinking this is a three-way deal.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, then that's a possibility. But again, Hextall's not doing anything quickly. Like, I know that his boss is actually been seen in the box with him, but still nothing's happening.
Yeah, I know there can be an overemphasis on scouts being in the building, meaning anything or something. And I know I always say that preamble, but when the same scout is in Philadelphia 1 week or last week, and then again 2 scouts yesterday at the Flyers Devils game, I just don't think they're doing due diligence. I think they're, I don't think they're scouting for the meeting between the Flyers and the Leafs next week. I mean, right now everything is seen through the Nylander prism with Toronto, and I think that everything means something in that regard until he signs or until he gets traded. So I have to interpret that.
Sanheim I got again last night is the one. Like that's the guy that they're looking at, right?
But it's got to be more than that, Ek. It really does.
I'm not saying it has to be more than that. I'm just I don't know, and we can discuss how much the debate about how much Nylander is really worth when Toronto doesn't think he's worth that much in the first place to pay him.
They do, but they do think he's worth a lot. The problem is they don't want to pay him $8 million.
Right. Well,
based on 260.
They don't want to pay him $7 million, from what I've heard. I mean, that's
right.
Like, they want
to pay him what past.
So you're talking about a $6, and I don't disagree with them. I think he's a $6 million player. Like that's flat out where I think he is too.
I think most do think that, and I think that's another holdup in the deal. But like I said, Dave Scott's been in Ron Hextall's box, and still nothing's happened. So I don't know if there's any urgency. That's the problem.
Well, losing games at home used to be a thing in Philadelphia.
I know.
That was a big deal, right? So you went on the road, they won 3 out of they got 3, they went 3-0-1 on the West Coast trip, including Arizona. That was impressive, and that was at a point where everybody thought Hextall was done, but then they come home and they lose 2 in a row at home. And to Florida and New Jersey, losing at home used to matter a lot more to them.
They might have to lose the whole homestand, all 5 games, for something to happen.
Yeah, and I mean the next one is Tampa, so that's not going to be an easy one. But yeah, I think now I did hear something else today that was kind of interesting, and that was Mike Smith's name mentioned, and this is involving all my phone calls with rumor charts. Mike Smith from Calgary's name getting mentioned around, not to Philadelphia, but to Tampa, which is interesting because looking back to remember Mike Smith was in Tampa originally a long time, and it was a backup. It was a backup. He's officially out 4 to 6 weeks. That we just got the text from the NHL within the last couple minutes, right? That's 4 to 6 weeks for Vasilevsky. The question is, Mike Smith struggled in Calgary.
Yes, but he didn't. Last year he didn't struggle until he played well until he got hurt. Then he came back and he was not as good when he was hurt, and then they had to go to Rittich and Gillies and other goaltenders, and that basically ruined their season. But I believe he's a UFA at the end of the year, and that's a stopgap move for Tampa if they think Vasilevsky. I'm sure with a broken foot he's going to probably be out closer to 6, but you never know. But Louis Domingue and Eddie Pasquale, I'm sorry.
This is like Carter Hutton territory. This could be the reason I bring that up is because this is a team that has serious Stanley Cup chances, right? They have serious Stanley Cup ambitions, and they need a backup, I think, who can carry them if they have to. You know what I mean? And this is when I used to talk about Rene and Hutton. I really, this is the same kind of thing to me that I like Louis Domingue, but he's not. Is he going to be?
I guess here's the big question, Ek. With Rittich. I mean, the guy's literally only played 30 NHL games. Are they really going to give him the reins? That's really the question.
Right. That is the question. And
I heard in Toronto when Calgary was coming through there that they are not fearful of making Rittich the number 1. So I think that maybe carries a little weight in terms of them moving on from Smith, that they think Rittich can be the number 1. But Kevin, just talking about Tampa and talking about Boston too, because I don't think we've heard anything about Zdeno Chara and his injury.
Yeah.
These are big. McAvoy's out for them now. Chara, and it didn't look good. And Vasilevsky, 6 weeks in late November and December. you could come out of that being 6-7 points behind a team in first place in the division. This is tough for Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, we look at the number of injuries. I mean, we always have injuries, but the important players. That's the thing that strikes me.
Yeah.
A lot of very important players, and I do think Tampa needs to go out and get a goalie. I just don't think they're Domingue in particular. I don't think he's ready for prime time. He has not kind of showed himself that, and their backup. Usually, and I make the argument that no matter who you have as a backup, they're not going to be able to carry you. But you got to do better than that. And I think Tampa will sort of look at their options and see what's available.
I can give you a name, but I can tell you what I've heard about it. And Steve Mason's name is out there, but he's turning down offers because apparently he wants something sort of concrete. And I don't know if he wants like maybe 2 years of security. I'm not sure. But Steve Mason's out there. But for 4 to 6 weeks, I don't think he's coming back for that.
Is it concrete, or is it the fact? I mean, I heard he's not taking offers because he doesn't know if he can play anymore. Like he's in.
And that could be it too. I mean, I'm hearing he's not taking
really bad, and he really was. He was very frustrated by that. That's what I heard about Mason.
Okay. And that may be true too. So we at least both heard he's turning down offers.
He's definitely turned down. I heard he turned down a possibility of going to Pittsburgh actually, like early.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's true or
Tampa,
not.
would he come back and have a chance at winning a cup? Maybe. I don't know.
The only unsigned guy, and again, you don't know what condition these players are in after is Kerry Letton, and he didn't get signed, but he was not very good in Dallas last year. So I mean, there are teams out there like Carolina who's got McElhinney, Mrazek, and Darling. That maybe they would be open to trading one of them. But yeah, Tampa Bay's in trouble because you're not going to get anybody close to Vasilevsky, and when you get him back,
trouble may be too strong, but they're just. I mean, it's not like they're going to miss the playoffs. But
no, of course not. They're too talented.
I mean, they're division lead, and the guys come back from broken bones. Like I don't know. I certainly haven't seen the X-ray nor. Do I play a doctor or am I a doctor? But guys come back in 4 weeks, I think, from if the bone is, if they're quick healers, I guess we'll say.
It's better that than a high ankle sprain. Exactly.
Well, it's better than a groin injury for goalies. I mean, there's certain things like goalies that really are issues with goalies for sure.
What? Has there ever been a time where there's this few half decent quality backup caliber goalies available? I can't recall when I've seen so few around.
I think there's a reason for that. I think you're absolutely right. But the reason is that with parity, teams are putting a lot of stock in their backup goalies.
I'm just looking at a UFA list of goalies right now, and I feel like the guy from when they're looking at in the movie Major League, who the bleep are these guys? Like it's unbelievable. Like it's crazy.
Anybody who we're looking for, Peter, a team seems to have this guy stashed, like Scott Wedgwood. He's still with the Sabres. We never hear about him. Jared Careau, he's with Anaheim. We never hear about him. But the problem is, Anaheim's probably not going to want to trade for any of these guys. They probably are looking for a UFA guy, and that's why Mason is the only guy I can think of.
And now Philadelphia is definitely not going to waive Calvin Pickard with Elliott and Neuwirth both down. So,
I was just looking at Red O'Bara. Not that someone should consider him, but just a name that came up.
Actually, I've heard good things about him from players.
He was with the Ducks, then the Gulls, then he went to Switzerland.
Red O'Bara can play a little bit, but he's never had a chance to play a lot. So
he's only 30, so he might be serviceable.
Texas.
Say that again.
Didn't he run for the Senate in Texas?
Yeah.
No, that's loser Beto O'Rourke.
Probably going to run for president now. So yeah.
Great.
Another interesting stat that was sent to me, and this is kind of disconcerting, but I'll throw this out there, and we'll get back to some rumors if we can. But we're running out of time. This was that Frederick Anderson now has more assists and more primary assists than Patrick Laine. Okay, which is really
wow.
I mean,
that's a great statistic, Ak. That's a great statistic.
And the Toronto Maple Leafs lead the NHL in icings because that's all they do is the stretch pass. And
Frederick Anderson can handle the puck really well, but he's got so he's got 5 assists, but he's got 3 primary assists.
Okay, but the primary assist part, I've spoken to a few guys about it, and I couldn't find anybody that feels like a primary assist is really worth more than any other assist.
I don't see how that's possible, Russ.
But I'm telling you, it's something that is overblown in the stat world.
No, I mean, how can that be silly?
Because a lot of times the play doesn't start with the primary assist guy. It starts with that other pass, and then.
But isn't the primary assist the one that passes to the guy who scores?
Yeah, but the guy who passes it to the primary assist guy a lot of times made a really good play to do it, and
Sure, but the guy who passed the guy who scored, that means something.
But if there's only one assist on the play,
that's a different story. If you're going to track it to that point, then that's fine.
Yeah,
but then it's more. So then it's therefore more important assist if you're only one assist.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need 2 guys to produce a goal sometimes.
No, if it's only a 1, obviously it's important. But if it's but I'm telling you, a lot of these primary assists, when you go and track them, they are 2 assist goals, and a lot of times it is that other guy that makes a great defensive play to get it up the ice to the primary assist guy.
Yeah. We all know the analytics debate around secondary assists and stuff.
I don't know. I just thought for a goalie who is 200 feet away from to get more primary assists than Patrick Laine.
A great stat. I like that stat.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about your piece in USA Today, because I saw Erik Carlson last night against Toronto, and there's just something off there. I mean, he doesn't have a goal yet. I mean, he's still Erik Carlson. He still moves great. He set up a couple plays. There was a power play goal where him and Brent Burns combined to set up a goal. But he's not the same. And it's the question of, is it the injury? Is it the fact that he's with a new team? Is it both? What?
Well, that's the only reason I did. He still is Erik Carlson. That's why I didn't give him a D, because he's, he's still the best offensive defenseman in the game. But obviously, I'm not a big plus minus guy. But when you're -9 and nobody else on your team is anywhere near that, that's a telling statistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Brent Burns, who is a dominant defenseman, is a plus player on that team. Right. So, clearly he hasn't assimilated well. And I think there's been an adjustment issue. I think he's pressing from what I watch. I think he's trying to do too much instead of doing what he does best, which is just let his instincts take over. I think he's thinking too much. But he really hasn't been the same player. And the fact he doesn't have a goal, he is a statistics guy. He generates a lot of numbers, and he hasn't been able to do that. And I don't think they're panicking there, but I think they clearly expected a lot more. They didn't get him, as I wrote, for what he was going to do in October, November. They were really hoping they were getting him for what he could do for them in April, May, and beyond. And so I think they're still thinking they're going to figure this out, because on paper, having both Burns and Carlson,
right,
and Vlasic, I mean, that's just such a formidable top 3 defenseman.
It is. And you wonder sort of one of the things you look at this, and it's more of a basketball point, is that guys in basketball want to get the ball at the time to take the shot. So how can you get when you have a bunch of stars, a whole bunch of opportunities to touch the ball and get a look to take a shot? Hockey's somewhat similar in the way players play and what their roles are. So you've got a guy like Burns, you've got a guy like Carlson. This isn't like having Pronger and Niedermeyer back in 2007 like Anaheim. It's a different situation because you also have Vlasic, but you have a whole bunch of forwards up there who like the puck too. And that's the difference. It might not be anything. I agree there is something a little off with Carlson, just in the way he's playing, but also it might not be the right fit because of how your offense runs and how you transition the game and who's been leading that. And it's going to take longer than 6 weeks of the season to figure out. And you might have to make some tactical changes, not just thinking insert player A here fixes all these other things.
Well, we did talk about that, Peter.
We talked about it a lot.
We did, because, we do know that the power play was going to be affected. So it was affected early on. It was really bad for San Jose. And then, with Burns, we knew he gets a certain amount of touches. And, this might take half a season to figure out unless they trade him again.
Well, here's the thing. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I talked to a lot of people about this when he was going to, when rumors were flying around about where he was going to go, where he was going to get traded to. And the most common thing that I got back, the most common negative about trading for him was that he wants the puck all the time. That's what people would say, that he's going to carry the puck up the ice. That's what he does. He's a puck carrier, and he has to have, he likes to be the quarterback, and he is not. In Ottawa, that was fine because there was no one there. Stone and those guys. I mean, Stone's a great player, but but they would let Carlson handle the puck all the time. I think he's handling the puck a lot less, and I think that's got to be uncomfortable. Coming up the ice looking for passes or looking where to go when he's used to being the quarterback.
Yeah. The only thing I find hard to believe out of the trade scenario is the fact that, again, San Jose, I think, has aspirations, and they didn't give up a ton for him, but when you have a Carlson and your aspiration is to win a Stanley Cup, you keep a Carlson. I
think they'll keep him until the deadline, but for some reason, if it's not working out, then they might move him.
But they won't. They'll have to trade him to the West because there's that penalty in the the trade.
I agree with Mike. They got aspirations. If they're in it, like if they're a playoff team, if they collapse, well, obviously, they would.
Let's not forget how good Erik Karlsson was for Ottawa a couple years ago in the playoffs. I mean, he was great. I mean, he was.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they're panicking there. But I like X Point, and like he does want the puck all the time. Like he would have been a much better fit in my mind for Vegas, who doesn't have anybody like him.
Right.
They have Schmidt was their best defenseman, and he's not anywhere near the offensive defenseman that Carlson is. So he might have been better off. Like he would not be limping along at 8 or 9 assists right now if he had gone there.
No, and I do think that this does change perhaps the way Tampa looks at it this summer. I do think that when all is said and done, because Tampa has also has Hedman, they have players who can carry the puck. And I think the foregone conclusion in many people's minds that I talked to was that he was going to go to San Jose, maybe stay there if things went really well, but still there was a 50% chance he wouldn't stay there, and he would go, back. And then Tampa was the team that he wanted to play for, and that's where he would go. And but if you're Tampa now, this probably does change things a little bit. Like it does change how you look at it. This means he does end up in Vegas. I mean, maybe this is where he goes because
what it also could mean, Ak, is that he's not based on how he's playing, and his reputation is. He's a 2-time Norris Trophy winner. He's a great defenseman, but there is the concern in terms of the drop off. He's not a $10 million player now. Probably he's an $8 to $9 million player. And does that bring other teams into the mix where they can afford an $8 million Erik Karlsson rather than a $10 million Erik Karlsson? I think that maybe that brings Vegas in. Maybe it brings other teams in the East in.
Yeah, who really could use him is Ottawa.
No, Thomas Chabot's doing pretty good.
I was going to say Chabot is. If Carlson's there, we don't see Chabot doing it.
That's a great point. But then that's you're definitely right. I mean, Montreal, he would be incredible in Montreal. Like that would be.
What I was thinking was the Rangers because they'll have a lot of cap space. So I mean,
I agree with that.
And they don't have that guy at the moment. I mean, Pionk is playing the part, but like I said, Pionk's got a lot of other shortcomings. So Carlson's buddies with Lundqvist. If he's a UFA, they're going to talk to him.
So
by the way, there was. Oh, just one thing. By the way, the salary retained in that deal that basically balances out the amount the Rangers are retaining $900,000 on Spooner for this year, so the money basically breaks even.
Thank God, my wife was just asking me how much money they were retaining on Spooner. So, kidding. Sorry, that's good information. We are a hockey show, after all. I'm just joking around. It's been a week, kids. Sorry about that. All right, so here is say what you want about Scott Darling, okay? He's struggled. He's been up and down, but these goalie pads, man. I'm sorry, because remember that the Carolina Hurricanes are going to wear the Hartford Whalers jerseys.
Yeah.
So these goalie pads are freaking amazing.
The question I want to know is,
that's the question.
Are they going to play Brass Bonanza?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are.
I
Yeah.
think they already do sometimes, from what I was told. I think they even do it now, but I just think these pads are amazing. And
Yeah.
you know,
Those are Mike Liut pants.
Mike Lee's pads were like 6 feet tall, weren't they?
I know.
Yeah.
They were like the
Scott
crazy.
Darling's 6'7", I think.
I know.
It's much smaller.
Yeah, his pads were just nuts. All right, well, I think that's all the time we have for today, kids. But thank you so much, Kevin. As always, you can follow Kevin on USA Today or @by Kevin Allen on Twitter. And for all the
Liu was 6'2", so maybe his pads were 6 feet.
I mean, he was in the era where there was no, like, they didn't care how big your pads were, right?
It was all pad. Yeah.
He was. I remember it just seemed like he was just like the pads were at least covering the 2/3 of the bottom of the net.
No, that's true.
So that's where you can follow Kevin, and you can follow us all at normal places, and you can find us there for sure. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Have a nice weekend, everyone. Enjoy the games.